So it's another time I was bringing my kids to school. It was cold. They were all bundled up, and they were waiting in the garage to get in the car. And the reason they were waiting is because I couldn't find the car keys. And so I went around the house, rushing because they're not going to stand still for very long. I rushed around the house looking for the keys, and I can't find them anywhere I know to look. So I just drop on my knees. And I'm not praying, I'm just changing my perspective. I just changed my perspective to see, and there I see the keys. They're right behind a little piece of furniture. One of the kids must have put it there. And it's obvious to me now, because I have changed my perspective. I get in the car and we drive to school. But you couldn't see that from your perspective. So sometimes you just want to change your perspective because it allows you to see things that your current perspective doesn't allow you to see. And this is what great chess players do, is they change their perspectives. And that's why they're able to see winning moves that others don't see. This is Alexandra Kustanuk. She's the reigning women's world champion of chess. And here she's playing about 15 games. She stands in front of one game, she looks at the board, she makes her move, she goes to the next game, she makes her move, she goes to the next game, she makes her move, and when she's done, she goes back to the front, and she does it again. She's going to win all of these games. And even though that guy is going to have 30 minutes to think about his next move, she's going to look at it, and in 2 seconds, she's going to know what the winning move is. How is it that she does that? What she said to me was that chess is very much about repeating patterns that have worked. What she does is she repeats patterns that work, and that allows her to overcome a mathematical challenge. And that mathematical challenge has to do with the short-term working memory capacity of a human mind, the RAM of a human brain. How many things can a human remember at once? Someone just call it out. What was that? 1? Definitely 1. Can we remember 15 things? Very difficult to remember 15. When you give a presentation, how many points are you supposed to have at the most? 3, 7. 7 plus or minus 2 is the general rule. That we can remember 7 plus or minus 2 things. So we go to the grocery store and we have 5 things on our list, and we come back with everything. But if we have 15 things and we don't write them down, then we're probably going to forget something. We remember 7 plus or minus 2 things. And what that means is that when you're problem solving with your team, after you have generated 7 possible options, your team stops seeing options because they can't keep the options in short-term working memory. How do you solve a problem that has more than 7 options if you only have the slots for 7 options? You can't use logic. And chess players don't use logic. There's a model for short-term working memory. And what it says is that there are 3 ways that we keep things in short-term working memory. And to illustrate those, I'm going to ask you to remember the last 4 digits of my cell phone number. Okay? Don't write it down. I just want you to remember it. Okay? 3305. Don't write it down. How many people remember that number? Great. Now what this model says is that about half of us are using what's called our phonetic loop. That means that we're repeating to ourselves 3305, 3305, 3305. How many people are doing that? Yeah. About half of us, right? About half of us are using what's called our visuospatial sketchpad, which is that we are visualizing it. Either we visualize the numbers, or maybe we visualize the shape that it makes on a keypad. How many people are doing that? Yeah, so about half of us. But there's a third way to keep things in short-term working memory, called the episodic buffer. And to illustrate that, I'm going to ask you to remember a different number. Okay? Don't write it down, just remember it. 2468. How many people remember that number? Great. Now, what this model says is there are probably a few of us, but not many of us, who are using our phonetic loop. In other words, to remember 2468, we don't say 2468, 2468, 2468, 2468, 2468. How many people do you hear yourself doing that? Maybe a couple of those. It also says that we probably are not using our visuospatial sketchpad. We're not visualizing it. Some people are, but most of us are not. How many people are visualizing it? Should be a few more. Yeah, great. A few more than are phonetic. How many people have seen that number sequence before? 2, 4, 6, 8. How many people have an idea what the next number is likely to be? Likely to be 10, right? We're using our episodic buffer, a sequence of events that we know go together in a certain sequence. It's a story. It's a narrative. It's a sequential pattern. And so when Alexandra Krippendorff is playing chess, she's not using a logical process. She's using her episodic buffer. She looks at a game and she says, I recognize this sequence before. I have played this game before. And the way you win this game is you make this move. And she goes, the next one, she goes, I recognize this game, you do this. I recognize this game, you do this. I recognize this game, you do this. And so the way we walk around the day solving problems is not through Porter's 5 forces or the 4 Ps or logical application of frameworks, but we look at the story and we say, I recognize this story, and the way we win this story is we do this. And I propose you know this intuitively, because the last time you solved a problem at work, you didn't say, what does the strategy diamonds tell me? You said, what does this remind me of? This reminds me of this time 3 years ago where we faced a similar situation, and what we did is we did this. We made this move. So we're walking around like automatic robots. 94% of our behavior is guided by subconscious thought. And our walking around like automatic robots, looking at problems, seeing solutions, and those are governed by the stories that we recognize. And this has actually been measured, that master chess players recognize twice as many stories or patterns as experts, and grandmasters recognize 10 times as many. So the way to reach mastery, the way to see strategic options others don't see, is simply through a process of pattern acquisition, adding new patterns, remembering new stories. Those stories have been embedded in our minds, literally programmed into our cortexes since we were young. They're culturally embedded.